Romero and Izzy Adesanya. Listen, this was not the fight we expected. Now, whenever somebody comes out and says it's not the fight that we expected, that is code for this fight was terrible, but I don't want to say it was terrible because I have a job to do and I have a relationship with both guys and I don't want to look like the skunk at the garden party. Listen, this one laid an egg. This one is the cure for insomnia, but a deeper question is who's to blame? And I think that's a very hard question to answer. Many are blaming Adesanya. I'm not sure that I saw it that way. Look, Yoel Romero walked out into this fight. He planted both feet, put his hands up, and never moved. He stood absolutely still. Adesanya could circle to the left. Yoel wouldn't even turn to face him. Adesanya could circle to the right. Yoel wouldn't even turn to face him. He just stood there. It was as baffling as the night that Nick Diaz laid down in the cage against Anderson Silva. Now, the crowd didn't boo. The crowd loved it when Nick Diaz did it. It was highly entertaining, but Anderson himself, the greatest of all time, even had to stand there and stop and just look at him and go, what are you doing? Anderson didn't attack him. He didn't pounce on him. He was baffled. He was confused. I think that's what you were seeing with Adesanya. And while an untrained eye probably told you, listen, Yoel is nothing more than a heavy bag. He's a stationary target. He's doing everything defensively wrong that you're told to not do in fighting. Hit him, kick him, do it, jump up and knee him, do anything you want. He's not moving. Maybe you're right. In hindsight, maybe you are. But let me just tell you what Izzy was seeing. What Izzy was seeing is something that he wasn't expected to see. Whenever an opponent does something that you're not expecting him to do, and you lay in bed at night all through training camp, you play out all sorts of different scenarios. When one of them pops up that you did not anticipate, things get weird very fast. You start to do calculations. The whole time you're in a fight, you're a detective. You're looking for clues. You're looking for movements, you're looking for motions, you're looking for opportunities, you're looking for vulnerabilities. When you don't see those, when something happens that you've never seen prior in your career, you've never seen in the training room, you've never had a coach breakdown, you never saw on film from any athlete ever, you have the right to extend your investigation. Adesanya was a detective looking for clues of openings who was forced to extend the investigation. First round ends. First round was very easy to tally because Adesanya touched Romero 3 times. Romero touched Adesanya 4. Now, the official judges' scorecards are in. I don't have them in front of me. But the announce team of John Anik, Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier said, look, this one's real easy to decide. Adesanya touched him 3 times. Romero touched him 4. Obviously, Romero wins the round. Not so fast. Not so fast. That's actually not the rule. I don't know how the judges had it. I would just like to elaborate on that thought. The judges get to be very subjective. They are not forced to be objective. So it is not as simple as 4 is higher than 3 and therefore 4 beats 3. It's not. They get to look for damage. They get to look for aggression. They get to look for cage control. They don't just get to look for strikes. If you were to go back, I'll give you an example that you'll be able to understand. This will be very easy. But Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had very few fights where he touched his opponent more times than his opponent touched him. But Mike would touch them with such ferociousness and such power and create so much damage that he would still win the rounds and win the moments and win the exchanges. So it is not as simple. I just want to make this point. It's not as simple as one guy had 4, one guy had 3, 4 is better than 3. It's not. So when you start to play this fight through and you get to a decision, look, I thought Romero was going to get his hand raised. In some respects, that would have been nauseating. To make believe that Romero went out there and did enough to take a championship away might have been bothersome. But that doesn't mean that it would have been wrong. It's a 10-9 must system, and the judges have the right to see what they saw. And even though those scorecards were all over the board, it was still a simple situation of this is a little bit tough to judge. Because Adesanya does at least look like he's trying to get into a fist fight. And Romero does at least look like he's trying to conserve energy and avoid engaging in a fist fight. Romero is very baffling to me. And he's baffling to me only because he is such a dynamic world and Olympic class wrestler that chooses to not bring those skills with him. I would encourage Romero, and I have a feeling I'm a little bit late, and I have a feeling it's going to fall on deaf ears, because I certainly can't be the only one. Certainly his own camp and his own team have grabbed him by the collar and smacked him left and right and said, listen here, you got a lifetime of wrestling behind you. Go out and use that. Okay, if for some reason Romero is just not seeing the opportunities to close the distance and clinch up and engage his opponent, try to ultimately drag them to the ground, if he's not seeing those opportunities, he can still use those movements just to remind and reinforce the belief in his opponent's mind that you are in here with an elite wrestler. If you can get a striker to always worry that the takedown could come at any time, you will reduce his striking immensely. We've seen this happen in MMA. Ray Sefo comes to mind. Tyrone Spong comes to mind. Genki Suko comes to mind. Great strikers, very great strikers, who would still go out there and win. And they would be stand-up battles, but they didn't know that going in. They didn't know my opponent isn't going to try to take me down. So all of a sudden, even though they're in their wheelhouse, the fights end up pretty close. Reason being is it's in their mind. I'm in a little bit of a different world. It can be a little bit more dynamic. Romero doesn't do a good enough job of reinforcing that psychological belief within his opponents. So if he wants to go out and stand with these guys, and he's a fantastic athlete who's very powerful, and he's also a little bit awkward, he can go ahead and stand with guys. We've seen that. Romero's proved that he's a complete fighter. Whether it's a Costa fight, whether it's a Whitaker fight, even tonight with Adesanya, he's proven he can do that, but he's also proven that he's not making his opponents worry about a lifetime accomplishment, success in the wrestling world. I think that that's Romero's one big mistake. Now, I also think there's plenty of compliments that you could pay Yoel. I think that Yoel did a very good job. Look, he wasn't checking all the leg kicks, but largely that's because Adesanya set them up so well. Yoel did have some very good moments. He did go in sprints. He did conserve his energy. He was able to be efficient. He was able strategically to extend his lungs and see the contest through. But I will tell you, a combat athlete's biggest fear is not losing. An athlete's biggest fear is exhaustion. That they will reach a level of fatigue where they cannot finish the contest. That is their single biggest fear. And the greats can put that behind them. The greats can accept that fatigue is a real thing, but my opponent's feeling this too, and I'm going to push until the end of the night. That is something that I think Adesanya showed. Adesanya's ability to get up off of the bottom in about 2 seconds with a world and Olympic medalist on top. Adesanya is showing gains. And when you are looking for storylines, not only, and we know what's next for Adesanya, it's Costa, I understand that, but I do think as we start to look forward and fantasize about an Adesanya-John Jones fight, the one thing that we were going to learn tonight, when Adesanya was locked in there with Romero, is just quite simply, can you stop a takedown? And by the way, if you can't, can you scramble and get up off the bottom? Because if you can't do one of those two things, you cannot compete with John Jones. Adesanya proved that he can. So the hope and the dream of that super fight stays alive. In fact, it gets a little bit more interesting. I understand this fight isn't what everybody was looking for. It wasn't what everybody expected. Even if you just look at the short term, okay? Let's go out to Yoel's last fight. He got an of the night bonus. Let's go to Adesanya's last fight. He got an of the night bonus. These are two very exciting guys. This is very simple math. Put an exciting guy in the red corner, put an exciting guy in the blue corner. What are you going to get? You're going to get an exciting fight. Well, not always. That doesn't mean that there weren't some wonderful moments. And at the end of the day, guys, you turn to the scorecards after time runs out, you see what they have to say, you shake hands and you walk away. Adesanya walks away the champion.